Hey everyone, Pugs here with two new reviews for y'all. Today I'm covering Spongicus and Cup Symphony. Well, they're episodes. What can I say? They have very little in common and generally no one talks about them. Maybe Cup Symphony gets a little bit of traction, but certainly not Spongicus. Be honest, when was the last time y'all saw that episode? Exactly. That's not an indicator of its quality by any means, as I've shown time and time again with some of the more forgettable episodes of this show. It's just something for me to talk about in this introductory segment. And moving on from that, as always, I gotta say thank you to everyone watching today, to everyone liking my videos, and to everyone commenting, and also to everyone subscribed, but I feel like that's a given. And now, let's just get right into it. Starting things off today, we've got Spongicus. This episode, I don't know what to say about it. Like, it gives me something that isn't quite nostalgia, but it's close. I'm not sure. I think it's because the end of the episode is very memorable for me, considering how much I love using it as a reaction video. But anyway, I also like the vibes of this episode. Like, the unique plot and atmosphere makes it stand out to me. And I guess I'll also note this here. I liked the animation in this episode, or at least the art. I don't know, I just really liked the character models in this one. They were quite round. Okay, now I'm just saying shit. Let me move on with the show. The beginning of Spongicus is bizarre in the best way, with SpongeBob singing randomly before he exaggeratedly spots something that we can't see, and this leads into a pretty funny joke with SpongeBob calling Mr. Krabs on a payphone for no actual reason. I also liked that this first segment of the episode builds intrigue as we watch as Plankton demolishes his own restaurant and then puts up a coliseum instead. And now that I'm thinking about it, this episode must be meant to reference medieval times, like the restaurant. I've been there once, but I don't remember anything other than wearing a paper crown, and also my parents still have the cups that we got from the place. Also, personally, I feel like gladiator fights would not be at all something I'd want to watch. They would either be boring or flat out unpleasant, because why would I want to see someone get killed while I eat? Anyway, I love the way that Plankton struggles to get the attention of everyone before he just has to say that it's free, because that's really the way to get anyone to do anything. I've been through college, I would know. And because this gladiator show is free, Mr. Krabs loses all of his customers. Can't beat free. I love how seriously Mr. Krabs takes this offense, and the bit about his mother's grave is hilarious when it turns out that she's at the Krusty Krab. The whole segment of the episode taking place at the Coliseum is simply enjoyable. There really isn't much more to it than that. I like the surprise appearance of Patrick that we get. It's kind of like House Fancy, except he's much more plot relevant here. And when Patrick is revealed, I like the way that the reactions that we've been seeing between SpongeBob and Squidward are completely inverted. I also really love how SpongeBob immediately jumped in there to save his best buddy Patrick, and his heroics are enjoyable and wholesome. Love seeing this kind of ride or die behavior between the best friends. The absolute viciousness of the crowd here is also pretty fun, and it's not even surprising given what we've already seen in the Great Snail Race or even the Fry Cook games. I also like how Mr. Krabs' mother was utilized yet again here, and the whole part between Plankton and that random woman was great. I think another thing that's great about this part of the episode, particularly the end of it, is how cartoonish it is, and by that I mean it evoked some very iconic cartoon tropes, such as Plankton's Roadrunner-esque run, or the part where the lionfish breaks through the wall. We then reach the ending of the episode, which is, as I said, its most iconic part. I really love this joke because of how it's such a great deconstruction of the usual everybody laughs ending trope, which is a trope I adore, by the way. Haven't had a chance to talk about it in a while, and I don't want y'all to forget this. I love how, in a way, it kind of just shows us what happens after an episode using that trope cuts to black, and to very funny effect as everyone just walks away, including Squidward, who just flat out leaves his post for no reason. Just some masterful comedy work here. Bringing everything together now, Spongicus was a very enjoyable episode for me. There were some real standout jokes here, even if the episode as a whole wasn't the funniest there's ever been, but it was still a funny episode, let's not get it twisted. And I've got nothing bad to say about this episode at all. Perhaps it felt a little subdued, like the SpongeBob and Patrick chase didn't really go anywhere, for example, but I mean, I like that chase the way it is, so kind of a weak example. But anyway, all of this is why I'm placing this episode in my amazing tier, where it comes in with a score of 9.1 out of 10. Cup Symphony is an episode where I have no idea what people think about it. Like, for some reason I feel like people wouldn't like it, but I don't have much basis for that. Like, I guess maybe it could be because I can anticipate people calling it a Squidward torture porn, but even then, this is exceedingly tame for one of those, so I don't think people dislike this one. Maybe. I wouldn't know. Myself, I've always found it to be one of the highlights of Season 6, so I'm excited to talk about it here today. Suction Cup Symphony starts off pretty well with a good joke about Squidward's horrible clarinet playing, and that joke reminds me of Band Geeks, so that's nice. In this first scene, SpongeBob is also pretty wholesome, trying to protect Squidward's dignity since he thinks Squidward is having gastrointestinal problems. I also thought that everything with the construction workers was pretty funny. Squidward learns about the opportunity to write a composition for the Bikini Bottom Symphony Orchestra, and he jumps on that shit immediately. It's kinda neat seeing Squidward's hobby of music stretched now to composition, because so far it's only been him practicing an instrument, so it's cool to see that he's also interested in making music as well. Once we learn that the competition, or the composition, is due the next day, this provides a great source of tension for the next few minutes. Also, speaking of that knowledge, I am now being reminded of the existence of the Sparta remix that I like, which uses Squidward saying due tomorrow as its source. I also pointed out because that specific Sparta remix uses the Grass Skirt Chase Sparta remix bass as its bass, and yes, there is a Sparta remix bass that comes from Grass Skirt Chase. People are so creative. Anyway, the episode continues on in a pretty amusing manner as Squidward starts stressing like SpongeBob in procrastination, while also being very me-core in being distracted by his neighbors. Well, actually, I don't have this problem anymore, thank God. At my old apartment, I could hear my neighbors all the fucking time. It was so awful for me, but now my new apartment has much better soundproofing. Sometimes I hear the people around me, but in general, it's pretty great. Alright, putting that tangent aside now, the various sounds that Squidward overhears inspire curiosity in me, and that curiosity will be satisfied later in the episode when we see why exactly SpongeBob and Patrick are making these, questionable noises. I also love all the faces of Squidward moving across the screen in a way that's similar to that one montage in Fear of a Krabby Patty. I find that this episode is very expressive with its animation, and I really love that. I also loved the shots we got of a gorgeous background outside of Squidward's house. Like, y'all know how much I love a good gorgeous background. I really like how this episode kind of subverts expectations a little bit, with Squidward getting announced as the winner of the contest immediately, which perhaps makes one wonder what exactly the rest of the episode will be about. I could appreciate when an episode is not so easily predictable. Or at least, I'm assuming that the episode isn't predictable. I'm already familiar with the plot, so it's hard to say. Anyway, once the symphony begins, we get a good idea of just what's about to go down here, as SpongeBob and Patrick are soon to make their appearance. You know, I actually quite liked the sound of Squidward's symphony too, and I love how SpongeBob and Patrick kind of fit into it as well. Like, it sounds almost natural for them to be there. And the whole plot idea of Squidward accidentally writing SpongeBob and Patrick into his symphony is pretty clever, and also very realistic. Like, when you're writing something but thinking of something else, and now you accidentally at least put some words regarding what you were thinking about. Okay, let me go back to talking about what happens on screen. The blank face that SpongeBob has throughout the entire playing of the symphony was hilarious to me. I also like how this whole segment basically says the same thing as Squidville, but much differently and perhaps more subtly. Like, Squidward's life would be far less interesting without SpongeBob and Patrick in his life. His music was truthfully enriched by them, and thinking of how these plots normally go, he probably wouldn't have won the competition without them, or had his symphony so loved. Before I sum things up, I wanted to give some attention to the comedy of this episode because it's really freaking good. Like, the visual gags are one of this episode's biggest strengths. For example, Squidward's game face was pretty funny, and I loved the whole bit with SpongeBob and Patrick being balls, and yeah, I know what I said, don't even start. Or, like, the rainbow part with Squidward's creativity, that was great. Or even the whole playing of the symphony, especially at the end where everyone's eyes are tracking Patrick's descent. Like, in general, this episode's got the comedy down. The part where Patrick's like, my job doesn't provide me with health insurance is great because the rest of that interaction, and, I also like this joke because it does my favorite thing of tipping this show into a more adult direction. Like, how much do kids know about insurance? I'm trying to think back to when I was a kid and if I knew how insurance worked. I'm highly doubting that I did. Just like House Fancy, one thing that's great about Suction Cup Symphony is that in the end, Squidward wins, one of those rare occurrences worth noting. It's pretty satisfying to see him win after all the trials and tribulations we see him go through, especially just knowing how much Squidward struggles with music in general. It's also just nice to see Squidward win in something that he really wants, such as the symphony. Wow, that's already 2 Squidward wins in Season 6. Pretty good for a season so disliked. And with that, I don't think there's anything else I can say about this episode. It's amusing, it's satisfying, and it's really funny, not much else to it. That's why it's being put in my amazing tier with a score of 9.4 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this review with some closing thoughts of mine. I don't really have any, though. I feel like I tried to be thorough with both of these reviews, although that was pretty hard with Spongicus because there was so little for me to talk about with that one. And Yeah, I really do not have anything to add for either of these reviews. Sorry, not sorry. Since I'm pretty ahead on my scripts, I can tell you that some of these reviews coming up are going to be pretty long, so I think I'm allowed a short review every now and then. So with that, I'm going to close this review out here, and I'll see y'all in the next review where I'll be talking about Not Normal and Gone. See you then!